Hello and welcome. So in this video, I'll be showing how to create your very first 2D animation with Adobe Animate. In case you don't have Animate, I'm going to leave the link in the description, so just check it out. First of all, you're going to want to create a project. I already have one open here, but you can do that by using the hotkey Control N. You'll see different presets. For now, just click the first one, Full HD, and create. I don't need that since I already have mine. Or you can click up here, File, New. Either way works. So first off, let me introduce you to the interface. The side here, we have the tools, the selection, the transform tool, lasso tool for selecting, the brush. There are different types of brushes, the fluid brush, classic brush, but you're mostly going to be using the classic brush and the pen tool. So we have the eraser tool, rectangle tool. If you hold it down, you can see the different options. There's oval, etc. Then the line tool, the pen tool, the text tool, paint bucket tool, eyedropper, and asset warp tool. You also have the hand. If you zoom in, this will help you pan around your screen. Then this helps you zoom in, but you can easily do that with Control plus or Control minus. Alright, so these are basically the major tools. We'll get into this later. On this end, we have the properties. So the properties, if you select a tool or an object, the properties will tell you what those tools or objects, the current settings you have for them. So right now, I don't have anything selected. So it's showing me 1920 by 1080 here. This is showing me the document property. So the stage is white. I can change it to dark gray. I'm just going to zoom out a bit or set the zoom to maybe 65. Okay, good. So I can, sorry, my tablet is acting up. I can change some settings here. I can change the screen size, the resolution, but I don't want to do that. Then the frames per second. So in case you're wondering what frames per second is, let me start by introducing you to what animation is. Okay, so here we are. We have this project file I just opened. A quick animation I made while I was bored once. So animation, if I play it now, he throws the ball, kicks it. Well, what is actually going on here is these are multiple drawings. And that is simply what animation is. It uses an illusion, a trick of the mind, where multiple images are played and it gives the illusion of motion. But actually, these are just still images. But when you play them in a sequence, it gives the illusion of motion. So we'll talk more about the principles of animation. For now, let me just show you the actual practical aspects and how to get started. We have the brush tool. Over at the properties, as I clicked on it, you can see the properties are here. So the brush tool, I'm going to change the color. Maybe I just want it to be black. I'm going to create a simple eye. So the main thing you need to know with the brush tool, you can set the size. You're noticing what's going on there. It's going up and down. That's to set the size. So if I draw now, this is the size. If I increase it, I draw again, that's the size. I'm going to select, clean that. And the second thing you need to keep in mind is the brush mode. So there are different modes. Let me set it to normal. So if, for instance, I draw a line, I change the color to yellow or green. I draw another line, it draws it over it. Change it to red, draw another line, it draws it over them. I want you to watch something now. I use this quite a lot, draw paint behind, but there are different modes. For now, let's stick to paint behind. I'm going to change it to blue. If I draw now, the blue was painted behind all these other lines. So brush mode, basically, it's how the brush is going to be drawing the new lines. After that, we have the smoothing. So when right now it's set to 100, if I set it to 0, I'm going to draw bunch of lines. If I set it to 100 and I draw again, you can't really notice, but if you zoom in, you notice the edges are a bit rough on these ones. I'm going to use the hand tool, that is H, is the hotkey. So for instance, here you notice, it may be hard to notice. Let me change the background to white. Okay. So the edges here are a bit rough. This one is smooth. This is the one I set the smoothness to 100. So it basically dictates how smooth your lines are going to be. So right here, the way you draw it is the way it comes out. But over here, it tries to make my line a bit smoother. So that is what's going on. I'm going to set this back to gray. I'm going to zoom out, take it to 70. Okay. Select and clean. So now let's actually get drawing. First off, I'm going to create a simple eye. You don't need to draw an eye. You can draw maybe a cup or something. I don't know. You can draw something simple. But I just felt like drawing this. So I can now show you the next tool. That is the reason I drew this eye. The next tool we're going to be looking at is the paint bucket tool. The hotkey is K. So with the paint bucket tool, you fill in an area with a certain color. So right now the color is set to black. If I set it to blue, I can fill these areas with blue. If I set it to white, I can fill these areas with white. If I set it to, wait, let me clean this. If I set it to black, fill this area with black. Okay, I'll just set here to white too. Oh no. Okay, let's just leave it at that. So with this now, you've seen I've created a simple eye and I've filled in the color. That's what the paint bucket tool does. It fills in colors into like a certain enclosure. And that is the key word there, enclosure. If, for instance, I have, maybe this is an eye. Let's pretend this is an eye. And this is another eye. I want you to watch what is going to happen here right now. I'm going to pick maybe the color black. I want to fill this in. I fill this in. You see, it's perfect. I can use the white and fill in here, and we have a simple eye. But what is going to happen now? If I try to fill in this next place, what's going on? It filled the whole thing. The reason is because, like I said, enclosure. Right now, this is not closed. We need to make sure, even if, okay, I'm going to leave it open just a little bit. And try that again. Still didn't work. I need to now come and make sure it is closed. There's a way around that. I'm going to show you in a bit. So now it is closed. It's working the way I want it to. So like I said, there's a way around this. So if you come back to the properties tab, the fill, gap size. So basically what you're saying here, it's saying if the gap is small, it should ignore it and fill just that area. This one, if the gap is medium size, etc., etc. So now, if the gap is large, it should still just fill it, and it did just that. It ignored that gap and it filled the area. So usually, you're going to be using this in case you don't really trust yourself. You might leave small lines that you're not aware of. You're going to use this. This will really help you out a lot. Okay, so with that done, I can further come here and fill in this area. So we have another eye down here. So I'm still on the select tool. Let me use this opportunity and show you the lasso tool. So with the lasso tool, I can just select this and delete that because I don't need it. I can also select the eye and bring it to the center. Okay, good. So now we have all of this is set. Let me further show you the pen tool. I use the pen tool quite a bit. There are also different types of brushes we'll be using. I'll show you that in a bit. But for now, the pencil, if you're not used to using the pencil, maybe in Photoshop or any other drawing software, this might take some time to learn. It actually took me some time to get used to. But how it works, you create lines with this pencil. You click the first time, that drops the first point. Clicking on another point extends the line to that area. So I can set the width. I can increase it again. So you're noticing it's increasing for the new lines. I'm just going to undo that and maybe set it for the very first line. Okay. So clicking creates a new point and it extends it. But if you don't, like now, I just click the mouse down and mouse up. But if you hold it down and you drag, it creates the new line, but it tries to bend it. So you just need to experiment. This is the part that is going to take you some trial and error to really get the feel of it. So right now I've clicked, I'm holding it down and I'm dragging. So the new line is showing me what it's going to be like. If you draw it further, it curves more. If you bring it closer in, it's straight. Then whichever direction you put the mouse, you're noticing how it's spinning around. So just play around with that a bit. I tend to use this more, or there's a brush that is similar to this. I tend to use this more because of what we call fills and outlines. So fills and outline in Adobe Animate. If you notice down here, we have a fill color and we have strokes, fill and strokes, but they are basically outlines. So we have a fill color and we have a stroke color. So what is going on right now is the brush tool uses the fill color mostly. Like right now it's white. You're not seeing what's going on here. But if I change it to maybe blue, you notice over here the fill color changed to blue. So while the pen tool and some brushes, very few brushes, I'll show you which ones, use the stroke color. And why I tend to use the pen tool more, let me just select this and clean it. Okay, no, I'm going to select everything, delete that. Wait, yeah, let me select this and clean it. So why I tend to use the pen tool more, if I click on the eraser, the hotkey is E, by the way. And the lasso tool, I forgot to mention, the hotkey is L. So if I click on this, it's a regular eraser. As you can see, I can clean some parts of the drawing. But what if I want to be a bit smart with the way I'm drawing? Because right now, there are different modes, just like the brush. You can choose to erase only the fills, or you can choose to erase the lines, that is the strokes. If I set it to erase fills, if I use the pencil, the hotkey is P, by the way, and I create this, back to the eraser with the hotkey E. So right now, erase fill. It only erased the fill because I drew it with the brush tool. Remember, the brush uses the fill while the pen uses the outline. So if I switch it to erase line, it's only cleaned what I drew with the pen. It ignored this other one. And that is because it's using the outline or the lines. So if I want to only erase maybe a selection, I can use this. So to ignore everything outside that selection. And this is similar to erase fills. It erases things inside outlines or strokes. So these are the different modes. The main ones you'll be using are erase fills and erase lines. So for now, I'll just leave it at normal. So like I was saying, the main reason I use the pen tool is, okay, no, let me take this serious. I'm going to select this eye right here. Select the eye. The transform tool, the hotkey is Q, by the way. If you hold down shift, you move your mouse to the edge. This lets you scale it. but you can warp and stretch it in a weird way. But if you don't want that, hold down shift. But to make sure the size stays roughly, the proportions stay the same. So I'm going to move that eye over here. Then I'm going to create the eye again with the pen tool. So if you experimented with that a bit, click here and drag, click down here. If you hold down Control and click outside, it will stop this current line and you can start creating a new one. So I'm going to click here, and here. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to do the same thing here. And you're probably noticing something. My lines, I'm making them long. I'm not really bothered about where they start or where they stop. And that is why I say I use the pencil. I'm going to demonstrate now, and you're going to see the advantage of using the pencil. So see these crazy lines I just drew right now? If we go back to the eraser, this final mode I want to show you is what we call faucet mode. Basically, right now, you're using the regular eraser. What you clean, it just cleans that area like that. But if you use the faucet mode, it cleans everything associated with what you select. So for instance, you've noticed it has changed, the icon has changed. I'm going to click on this blue area. Watch what happens. It cleaned the entire blue area. I click on this white area. It cleans the entire white area. But the downside of using the brush, if I click this black area, you're probably wondering what happened. Everything just is gone. The reason is because all these blacks are connected to each other. So while it was cleaning this selection, it said, okay, this is part of it, this is part of it, everything is part of it, and we don't want that. So the reason the faucet mode is actually very nice. If you use the pen tool, watch what is going to happen now. I'm going to click on this line. It treats outlines. The intersection is where it ends. Unlike this, that it cleans everything that is connected. Outlines, they stop at that intersection where they meet. So I can clean this and this and this. So this usually speeds up my drawings because often when you're using the brush, you're trying to be careful not to maybe draw outside the lines. But with this, okay, I think, okay, yeah, I'll leave it. With this, if you're in a hurry and you're drawing, if a few lines stick out, you can easily just come back and clean them. That's why I prefer using the brush tool, or if you click on these three dots down here, edit tool tab, you see the paint brush tool and the pencil tool. So let me select this for instance. I'm going to bring it here and this here. Okay. So if I select the pencil tool for instance and I draw, it's similar to the paintbrush, but now what you're drawing outlines. So I'm going to draw something like this, come back with the eraser, and you're noticing it's cleaning up to the intersections. So quite a lot you'll be using the pencil. The paint brush tool, and you see the paint brush tool also does that. But the regular brush tool, it's not the classic brush. I don't really advise to use it quite a lot. It's not going to be as effective as using the pencil tool or the paintbrush tool. Okay, so I'm going to fill it in. So K is the hotkey for the paint bucket tool. I'm going to fill here, the whites, and black area. And just like that, we have created the second eye. So now that is it for the paint brush, or the different brushes, the paint bucket tool, the pencil, the select, the transform, and the lasso. and the eraser. We've covered all of that. So now let's look at the text tool. Although the text, oh, going to switch. So the text tool, the hotkey, by the way, is T. Simply, you click somewhere and you can type. Similar to other softwares, you can change the font. Right now, I'm using Says You. I'm going to set it to Cooper Black. You can see that different fonts, and this is very nice. You can set whichever font you want, but very often you won't be using the text tool in Animate. Although Animate is actually nice, but animating text aren't very effective or as effective as you want. But that is the text tool. If for any reason you want to create your text in Animate, you can do that with the text tool. But it seems a bit stiff when I'm creating that, so I'm going to close it or delete it. We have the eyedropper tool, but it mostly just selects a color for you. So for example, now I've selected this fill in here. I'm going to click on it. The hotkey is I. So if, for instance, I click on this black, okay, no, it's already black. If I click on this blue area, the color changes to blue. So you're probably wondering, okay, what will I use that for? Often when you're animating, you probably have a color scheme or guide. So maybe either your client or whatever gives you the colors you're going to be using. So the client says, I want the iris to be this color, the hair to be this color, blah, blah, blah. So when you're drawing, you're animating, you're trying to be quick, you can fill in the areas with maybe a temp color. Then later on, you just select all those areas. You select every single area the hair is, and you simply just and select to change those areas to this color. It's actually very nice to use. It's something you need to get used to while you're moving forward. Or if you want to change a color, basically just use it when you want to change a color. So now we have looked at the basic tools you're going to be using. But while we have been able to draw something, we have not been able to animate anything. And I told you this is an animation video, so if I stop here, it means I lied. I'm going to clean this. And let me show you how we can actually start animating in Adobe Animate. I'm going to use the brush tool, select maybe 40 or 50 size is okay. So time to show you what we call layers and etc. Okay, so down here we have the timeline and the layers. If you're used to Photoshop, you already know what layers are. But if this is your first time experiencing it, this is basically how layers work. They help you separate different designs. So layers, just think of layers as maybe pieces of paper. Down here, you draw this, you place it on another piece, you draw something, you place it on top. So you can move one in front of the other. You can move it around. I'm going to select everything and clean it. So the first one, maybe I'm going to make it blue. On the next layer, I'm going to draw again, but I'm going to make it red. The one below it is hidden, but if I bring it above, boom, we have it there. So that is basically how layers work. You can put things in front of the other or behind the other. Okay, so let me demonstrate it now when you could probably use layers. So I'm going to create a very quick dummy scene here. You could have a guy. Then below it, we have another layer. This layer is going to be, okay, I'm going to change the stage background to white. This will make more sense that way. So below this, we're going to have a car. He's hiding. Okay, behind the car. So just ignore the bad drawing. I'm just trying to demonstrate, so I'm not going to really go into details drawing it. Okay, so on the other edge of the car, on the other end, we have maybe someone else is approaching with a gun. Yes, this looks very bad, but just ignore it for now. So we have someone else approaching with a gun. So with layers, we can put this separate. And the reason you're going to have this is when you're animating, you're going to be drawing a lot. If they are on the same layer, you're going to need to draw this car all over again, but we don't want that. We want just to draw this guy and the enemy on the end. So we can have the car on a separate layer, then we can just keep it there. When the guy is moving, we animate, we draw on his layer. When the enemy is moving, we draw on the enemy's layer. So now with that said, how do we do that to lock the car so we can't access it? You see these three tools here. The first one, you lock it. So that way, even if I try to select the car, I can't. It's not letting me do anything. See, it's saying the current layer is either locked or hidden. I can't erase it. I can't do anything. So I'm going to unlock it now. The next one we have, so we have the show on hide. This hides a layer. So when you're animating, maybe you want to hide something to view what's behind it. You can use this layer. You can use this option to hide it. Then right here we have the outline. If I want to see the outline of the car, maybe the car is too distracting. I want to animate the man here, but I don't want to see the car. The car is too distracting. I can select this outline. So it has outlined the car. It's still there. It's just outlined. So now I can focus on the man, although I'm still seeing the car. So I want to make sure he's still within the car's area. I can still see the car, but I can now focus on the man I'm meant to pay attention to. So that is what these three options do. And right here we have delete and we have folder. This is also a way to organize your layers. For instance, if you have a background, the background consists of three layers. Okay, for instance, if you have a background, the background consists of three layers. We have a mountain layer, we have trees layer, that is a lot of trees lined up, and we have floor layer. Maybe I'll just quickly draw that here. So where you could use folder is, I've created a new folder here. I can create layers and put them inside that folder. So I can rename the layers by double clicking on the name. I'll say this is trees, floor, mountain. So the floor layer, maybe I'll just draw something very quick. Something like this, okay. Then I'm going to fill it. So that is the floor. The mountain layer, maybe there's a mountain at the back. I'm going to give it this color, that is the mountain. Then we have trees. So I'm just going to draw a very quick tree. So we use Q to maybe change the scale. Okay, so right now we have a very quick dummy scene here just to demonstrate how layers work. This first layer, I'm going to name it man. Next one, car. The next one, enemy. So now if we're animating, I can have every other layer, maybe the car and the background, I can lock them. Then I'll just be animating the man and the enemy. The enemy is walking towards him, depending on the camera shot. And we'll get into working with the camera shortly. So we'll get into that. So this is a very quick scene, but you already get the idea. And by the way, this ground that I drew out here, it's not going to show in the final product. The reason is because the stage, this line you're seeing here is the stage. Everything outside the stage is going to be ignored. Okay, I said let me just point that out. So now that that has been done, let's do something else. So now let's create an actual animation. I'm going to select, okay, I'll create a new layer, select all of this and delete. So I want to just create a quick animation. I'm going to make this 55. Okay, maybe 50. Good. Okay, so now we have this. I want to show you what we call keyframes. Keyframes, basically, they are how you actually create animation. So now I want to animate something. Maybe I have a stickman here. So let's imagine I want to animate this. I want to animate him bending down and covering his head. How do I do that? So these are what we call frames. This is where you'll be drawing each of those still images I told you about. So right now it's set to 15 frames per second. That is 15 possible places you can put those images. If you notice here, 15 makes 1 second. So each second you can set a frame, but people usually animate in twos. That is 1, 2. I create. You can right click. You can create a keyframe, insert a frame, or create a blank keyframe. So now let me explain what each of these do. If you insert a frame, nothing changes. It just extends it. That's all it does. You're saying you still want that there. So in the previous example where I had that car in the background, this is a perfect instance where the car, or just insert a frame, is telling the software, it's telling Animate that I want this to remain as it is and it will still extend to this point. I want this car to still be in this scene, but I don't want to change anything about it. That's when you use insert frame. If you right click and say insert keyframe, now it's still there, but if you notice, it has added a keyframe. This point here is a keyframe, and what that means is you can move this. So if I go to the previous one, you have noticed the movement. But if you right click and say blank keyframe, it cleaned everything on that layer and you can draw from scratch. So this is basically how animation works. So now let's put this into practice. I'm going to create 1, 2, 3 blank keyframes. So remember, I'm animating on twos. That is, each drawing occupies 2 frames. So the issue we have now, if I try to draw from my head, I can say, okay, the stickman is over here. And I draw this nonsense. I jump to the next frame. I say, okay, the stickman is over here. I draw this nonsense now. But if I play it, you've noticed there's not much consistency because the way the character is jumping around, I can't remember. It's going to be very difficult, especially when you're drawing a full character with hair, with color, with eye, like a full character. This is just a stickman. You won't be able to remember where everything is. That is when we use what we call onion skinning. So I'm going to clean all of that, and this is where you can turn it on. And by the way, I forgot to mention, down here you can insert keyframes or you can insert frames by clicking down here. So you can set, if you work with blank keyframes a lot, you can just leave it on blank keyframe. Then anytime you click here, it will insert a blank keyframe for you. Your nothing is doing that. I'm just going to undo that. I don't need that many. So now over here, the onion skin. Over here, the onion skin now. If I click on it, watch what happens. Oh, we can see the stick man. Why is that? That is because onion skin is showing you the previous drawing. So let's create the actual animation now. I'm going to get serious a little bit and draw something competent. So now let's create a stickman with everything we know. I'm going to create 2 layers now. In each of this layer, I'm going to create blank keyframes. The first layer, I'll name it close. The next layer, I'll name it far. And why I'm simply doing this, I want the close part of the body and the far part of the body on separate layers. So I'm going to select the color blue. Okay, no, I'll use maybe this shade of gray. And the next one, I'll put a darker shade of gray. So on close now, I'm going to draw the stickman. I'm only going to draw the close part of his body here. I'll toggle the colors. And by the way, to switch color between the fill and the stroke, use the hotkey X. It's switching the colors. So on the far layer now, I'm going to go to the far layer and I'm going to draw the further part of his body. So in the next layer, so see how onion skin is showing us? It's showing us each of those layers and it's overlaying them. So I'm now just going to continue animating. So I want him to crouch down and cover his head. The close one, I'm going to do this. Far layer. So this was just something very quick, but if we play it, he quickly crouched. But it's looking a bit quick, so I'm going to add some in-betweens. And what we refer to as in-betweens, these are basically just, as the name implies, you draw things in between to add more detail. So if I click onion skin now, oh, I clicked on insert. So onion skin, if I turn it on, you're probably noticing something weird. And that is because it's trying to show me the before and after images. So I'm going to draw in between them. So over here, the in-betweens, I'm going to polish them out. So if I play this now, let me play this one more time. You notice there's more detail now in how he's crouching and covering his head. And like I said, to add a frame, if I want him to be down there for up to 2 seconds, I'm going to right click, insert frame. So now if we play the entire animation, it crouches, stays there. Okay, so this is what we call the loop preview, by the way. I keep toggling it here. The hotkey is Alt Shift L. Okay. So this loops through the entire animation over and over again. Not the entire animation, you select the range. For instance, if I want to just loop up till here, I press enter to play, by the way. Sorry for forgetting to mention that. To preview your animation, press enter. So if I want to preview just this area, I can do that. But I want to preview the whole thing. So now let's add his head. I'm going to create a new layer. So maybe I'll increase this a little bit, just a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to add keyframes and animate it accordingly. The head may be a bit too big, but just ignore that. All right, so now we have our character. He crouches. So what is he trying to avoid? I'm going to create a new layer and call it, with that other layer, I'll call it head. This new layer, I'll call it ball. And I'll make it red. And there we have our ball. So imagine it's continuing from here. So the ball is flying towards his face. So I'm going to say here, create motion tween. So at frame 1, the ball is over here. At this frame, I want the ball to be over here. Maybe I'll drag this frame here. Okay. So now let's preview. A bit too close. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, good. So he just he saw the ball ducked, he barely passed him. So now we have a very basic animation going on here. Let's look at adding sound to this. So now to add sound to the animation, I'm going to download some from the internet. So these are the sources I advise you to get used to. There's Pixabay. You can find both background music and sound effects. There's Mixit. You can find different sound effects. So for instance, I want either a whoosh or a swoosh sound. This is not the best, but I'm just going to select it because of time. Okay, this isn't the best, but I'll just download this. So by clicking on the download icon here, I have it. The next one is Sound Bible. I use this quite a lot too. They have all sorts of sounds. If you want maybe for a fight scene, they also have. So you can take those sounds and modify them however you want. So there are many ways to bring it in. One way is, and I also advise you have the sound on a separate layer. I'm going to call it sound effect. So you're not allowed to have space. So by default, it put that slash there for you. So one way to add sound is by simply dragging it in. So I've dragged it in now. If you notice down here, you can zoom in on the timeline by using this slider here. So now I've zoomed in a bit. If you notice down here, we have that. So you can set where you want the sound to start and stop. So right now it's set to stream. And what stream means is, so right now it's set to stream. And what stream does is, it plays it the entire sound just like that as a stream. But I'm going to switch this to, oh, and in case you have multiple sounds there, you can choose which one you want. I'm going to switch this to event. Oh no. Yeah, event. Then I'll create a keyframe. So events, which wherever you notice the sound is, just drag the keyframe there where you want it to start. So I want the sound to start around here. So the keyframe it was, I dragged it here. So let's see what that looks like. I didn't modify the sound or anything, but usually before you use a sound in your animation, you probably need to clean it up a bit. So it sounds weird, and also, but we'll just stick with that. So this is your first video. In a future video, I'll really show you how to go about all of this. But for now, I want you to just be able to create an animation from scratch. That's why I'm showing you all of this. So now let's imagine we want to export this animation. How do we go about that? So simple, what we can do is click up here, click export. Here, I'm going to click on export video. So if you want, you can ignore the stage color, but we don't, why would we want to do that? We don't want that right now. So you can have multiple scenes. Right now, we just use scene one. So ignore this too. You can set the start time and the duration, but we want to export the whole thing, so leave it as it is. Then you can choose the format. You can export Blu-ray, MPEG-4, whatever. But right now, I just want H.264. Then you choose a location. I'm just going to save this to my documents. So if you want to export it immediately, make sure this is selected. Click export. Okay, it has been exported successfully. And I'm going to check it out. If we go to the location, this is the location I saved it to. If we view it, right now it's just 2 seconds and it's 206 KB. So if I play this, and just like that, you have your first successful 2D animation. So this is nothing special right now, but you can take your time, and if you follow my tutorials, I'll be showing you all sorts of tips and tricks. So if you follow my videos, I'll be showing you how to create actual characters, 2D characters and fight scenes. So stay tuned for the next video. I look forward to seeing you. Alright, if you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe to help the channel out a lot. Also, please share and like if you liked the video, dislike it if you dislike it. If you didn't like something about the video, please be sure to let me know in the comments and I'll address that. Thank you and see you in the next video.